Every year, American agriculture generates more than $500 billion and produces hundreds of millions of tons of food. But beneath those vast fields, its most important resource is quietly deteriorating: the soil. After decades of intensive tillage and monoculture, the soil has lost nutrients, become less capable of retaining water, and grown increasingly dependent on external inputs. Now, the United States is experimenting with an approach that seems to run counter to modern agriculture: tilling less, planting crops that are not meant to be harvested, and bringing cattle back onto grain fields. Can regenerative agriculture restore this declining soil and transform the way America produces food? Join Terran Works as we explore. Modern agriculture is operating on an unprecedented scale. In 2023 alone, the global agricultural sector generated approximately $4 trillion in value added and produced nearly 9.9 billion tons of crops. But behind this enormous volume of food lies a resource that is disappearing: fertile soil. The FAO estimates that around 33% of the world's soils have been degraded by erosion, compaction, salinization, and pollution. While nature may require up to 1,000 years to form just 2 to 3 centimeters of soil, a bare, plowed field can lose that same layer through rain and wind. If the trend continues, erosion could remove 75 billion tons of soil by 2050 and reduce global crop yields by around 10%. This warning had already emerged in the United States during the Dust Bowl disaster of the 1930s, when drought and excessive plowing turned the Great Plains into vast dust storms. The crisis forced the United States to establish the Soil Conservation Service in 1935. By the 1980s, Robert Rodale began popularizing the concept of regenerative agriculture, not merely reducing damage, but actively restoring the soil. Today, the United States is one of the countries where this model has been commercialized most extensively. In 2022, cover crops were planted on nearly 18 million acres, an increase of 17% over 5 years. Yet they still accounted for only 4.7% of cropland. The share of corn acreage under no-till farming also increased from 16% in 2001 to 36% in 2021. And to understand how this model works, we must look beneath the surface, where harvesting machines cannot see, the layer of soil directly beneath the farmer's feet. The plow was once a symbol of modern agriculture. After only a few passes, its steel blades could bury weeds, loosen the soil, and create a clean surface ready for the next planting season. But beneath that perfect appearance lies a fragile ecosystem. Healthy soil contains water, air, plant roots, fungi, bacteria, and tunnels created by earthworms. This network helps water penetrate deeply, holds soil particles together, and creates pathways for roots to grow. When a field is repeatedly turned over by plowing, this structure gradually breaks down. Organic matter decomposes more quickly, the surface becomes more prone to crusting, and fine soil particles are carried away by rain and wind. In the United States, around 25% of the surveyed land faces concerns about water erosion, while 16% is affected by wind erosion. This is why many farmers are shifting to no-till or reduced tillage systems. Under no-till farming, crop stems, leaves, and roots are left in place after harvest, forming a protective layer over the soil. When planting season arrives, a direct seeder gently moves aside the residue, opens a narrow slot only a few centimeters wide, places the seed into the ground, and closes the soil again. Most of the field remains almost completely undisturbed. Reduced tillage, meanwhile, serves as a middle ground approach. Farmers still disturb the soil, but they reduce the depth of tillage, the number of machinery passes, and the area being worked. With strip till, machinery loosens only narrow strips where seeds will be planted, while the soil between the rows remains covered with crop residue. Some farms use only shallow tillage to control weeds and lightly mix organic matter into the topsoil. This approach is well suited to cold, wet, or heavily compacted soils, where complete no-till farming may cause the soil to warm more slowly and make seed germination more difficult. By reducing the number of machinery passes, farmers save fuel, limit soil compaction, and still preserve most of the protective cover on the surface. Why would farmers spend money planting an entire field that they do not intend to harvest and sell? The answer lies beneath the surface. After corn, soybeans, or wheat are harvested, the soil may remain bare throughout the winter. Without leaves and living roots, the surface is directly exposed to rain, wind, and nutrient loss. Cover crops are planted to fill this gap. The process usually begins in late summer or autumn, shortly before or after the main crop is harvested. Seeds may be spread by aircraft, broadcast spreaders, or planted directly into the soil. Farmers can choose rye, oats, clover, field peas, radishes, or a mixture of several species. Each plant performs a different function. Grass roots form a network that holds the soil in place and absorbs nutrients left behind. Legumes help add nitrogen. Radishes develop large taproots that create natural channels for water and for the roots of the next crop. Meanwhile, the plant canopy forms a barrier against heavy rain, while living roots continuously feed the microorganisms beneath the soil. Before the next planting season, the cover crops are terminated by natural frost, mowing, roller crimping, or another method suited to the individual farm. The plant material is not removed but remains on the field, becoming mulch and a source of organic matter. This is not a wasted crop. What farmers harvest is protected soil, retained water, and recycled nutrients. On some farms, however, this green cover can provide more direct value by becoming feed for cattle. Instead of terminating cover crops before the next growing season, some farmers turn this green vegetation into feed for livestock. The field is divided into small paddocks using movable electric fencing. The cattle graze in each paddock for only a few hours to several days before being moved to the next area. The recently grazed land is then allowed to rest, giving the plants time to regrow before the animals return. During this process, the cattle eat the young leaves, trample the plant stems onto the soil surface, and deposit natural fertilizer directly across the field. The trampled vegetation becomes mulch, while manure and urine return nutrients to the soil. Plant roots continue supplying carbon to soil microorganisms, creating a close cycle between crops, livestock, and the soil. According to the USDA in 2021, 89% of beef cow operations and 72% of dairy operations that planted cover crops used at least part of that acreage for grazing or harvesting as livestock feed. However, in 2017, only around 14% of cattle farms with cropland used cover crops, showing that this model still has considerable room for growth. But bringing cattle onto cropland is not necessarily regenerative. If the herd remains in one area for too long, grazes the plants too closely, or walks on wet soil, the animal's hooves can compact the ground and reduce water infiltration. The system also requires additional fencing, access lanes, water troughs, and labor to move the herd. Across many Midwestern fields, the farming system revolves around only two links. Corn is planted one year, soybeans the next, and then the cycle repeats. This approach is simple, easy to mechanize, and supported by reliable markets. However, the soil must continuously support similar groups of crops, while pests, diseases, and weeds gradually adapt to the fixed planting schedule. To break this cycle, regenerative farms extend the rotation to corn, soybeans, wheat, cover crops, and grazing before returning to corn. Some grasses or perennial crops may also remain in the system for 2 to 5 years to reduce disturbance and rebuild soil structure. Crop rotation is already relatively common in the United States. USDA data show that around 84 to 92% of corn, soybean, and wheat acreage has been grown under some form of rotation. However, most of these are still short cycles. Longer rotations involving multiple cash crops, cover crops, and livestock are far more complex. A USDA analysis of 20 experiments lasting up to 60 years found that diverse crop rotations generally improved crop performance, particularly under unfavorable weather conditions, while also potentially reducing the need for fertilizers and pesticides. But adding more crops also requires new machinery, skills, and markets. For that reason, restoring the soil is not only a biological challenge, it is also a market challenge. A green field is not necessarily a healthy one, and high yields during a year of favorable rainfall do not prove that the soil has recovered. According to the USDA, soil health cannot be measured by a single number, but must be assessed through a combination of physical, chemical, and biological indicators. The most visible test is water infiltration. Farmers drive a metal ring into the field, pour in a fixed amount of water, and start a timer. If the water quickly moves downward through root channels, earthworm burrows, and soil pores, the soil is functioning well. If the water remains pooled or runs across the surface, the soil may be compacted or crusted. Next comes the soil stability test. A dry clod of soil about the size of a golf ball is placed in water for approximately 5 minutes. Healthy soil remains in small aggregates and the water stays relatively clear. Soil with weak structure quickly falls apart, turning the water cloudy. When digging into the ground, farmers also examine the roots within the top 20 centimeters of soil. Healthy roots usually grow deeply, branch out, and cling to soil aggregates. If the roots bend sideways or curl, there may be a compacted layer beneath them. Earthworms, fungal strands, and old channels are also signs that biological activity is returning. Soil samples are then sent for analysis to measure pH, bulk density, carbon levels, organic matter, and microbial respiration. The NRCS estimates that for every 1% increase in organic matter, each acre of soil can hold approximately 20,000 additional gallons of water, equivalent to nearly 76,000 liters. For farmers, a field is only truly sustainable when it can both restore the soil and generate a profit. The clearest savings come from reducing tillage. The USDA estimates that switching to continuous no-till farming can save about 3.6 gallons of diesel per acre each year. For a 1,000-acre farm, that amounts to 3,600 gallons of fuel. Across the United States, conservation tillage practices are estimated to reduce diesel consumption by approximately 763 million gallons annually. Cover crops can also retain nutrients, limit erosion, and provide feed for cattle. When grazed, an expense intended to protect the soil can be converted into meat, milk, or hay that farmers no longer need to purchase. However, profits do not come immediately. Farmers must still pay for seeds, planting, cover crop termination, modifications to planting equipment, fencing, and water systems. According to the USDA, the short-term profitability of cover crops is often negative without financial assistance. One study in the Midwest also recorded average yield reductions of 5.5% for corn and 3.5% for soybeans on fields where cover crops had been used for 3 years or longer. Regenerative agriculture is therefore not a path to quick wealth. It is a long-term investment, accepting costs today in order to reduce fuel use, weather-related risks, and dependence on external inputs in the years ahead. Regenerative agriculture is not a formula that works for every field. No-till farming can reduce erosion, but in cold and wet regions, crop residue can slow soil warming, interfere with planting, and make weeds more difficult to control. Cover crops help protect the soil and retain nutrients, but if they are terminated too late in dry regions, they may consume water needed by the main crop. Grazing helps recycle natural fertilizer, but cattle that remain in one area for too long or walk on wet ground can compact the soil. These difficulties are clearly reflected in the rate of adoption. In 2022, cover crops were planted on nearly 18 million acres, but they still accounted for only 4.7% of U.S. cropland. Among farms that reported using cover crops in 2012, only 48% continued to report their use in 2017, and just 27% were still using them in 2022. This suggests that many farmers experimented with the practice, but did not maintain it consistently because of costs, weather conditions, or management challenges. A broader controversy concerns the term itself. The USDA acknowledges that regenerative agriculture does not yet have a standardized list of practices, and unlike the organic label, regenerative products are not currently governed by a single federal certification system. A farm may therefore use cover crops on only part of its land and market its products as regenerative, even though improvements in water retention, erosion, or soil organic matter have not been fully measured. The real question, therefore, is not which techniques a farm has adopted, but whether the soil is genuinely healthier, external inputs have been reduced, and the farmer earns enough profit to sustain the system. First proposed in 1981 by two German scientists, Adolf Goetzberger and Armin Zastrow, agrivoltaics, also known as APV, is a system that combines agricultural production with solar power generation on the same piece of land. Instead of building solar farms that effectively wipe out farmland, this approach allows crops to grow directly beneath or between rows of solar panels. At first glance, the concept may seem simple, but it is becoming increasingly important as global demand for clean energy continues to surge. In the United States alone, the United States Department of Energy estimates that the country could require more than 10 million hectares of land for solar energy projects by 2050. At the same time, the world is losing nearly 24 billion tons of fertile soil every year due to erosion and climate change. Agrivoltaics is emerging as a solution that could prevent the energy sector from directly competing with agriculture for land. According to the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, this model could even improve land use efficiency by as much as 60 to 70% compared to separating solar farms and agricultural fields into two independent areas. However, before understanding why this technology is considered so promising, it is important to first examine the challenges facing traditional solar farms today. Traditional solar farms began booming in the early 2000s as an alternative to fossil fuels. But as they expanded, a major problem became increasingly clear. They consume enormous amounts of land. A large-scale solar farm in the United States typically requires around 4 to 5 hectares for every megawatt of electricity generated, meaning a 1 gigawatt project can occupy more than 4,000 hectares, an area equivalent to thousands of football fields. The problem lies in the way conventional solar panels are installed. To maximize efficiency and reduce costs, the panels are usually mounted low to the ground. The spacing between rows is often too narrow for tractors and agricultural machinery to operate underneath. As a result, farmland that once produced food is transformed into land that produces only electricity. In many cases, the land beneath the panels can only be used for beekeeping or sheep grazing to control weeds. But with larger animals such as cattle or horses, the risk of damaging the solar infrastructure becomes far too high. And that is the central conflict of the modern era. The world needs clean energy, but it also needs to preserve land to feed people. This is where agrivoltaics begins to change the game. Unlike traditional solar farms that focus almost entirely on maximizing electricity output, agrivoltaic systems are designed to support both agriculture and energy production at the same time. Many modern installations use bifacial solar panels capable of capturing sunlight from above as well as reflected light from the ground, increasing power generation efficiency by roughly 5 to 20% compared to conventional panels. In arid regions, some farms install solar panels vertically, like massive energy walls, helping reduce wind speed, limit soil erosion, and protect the land from desertification. Meanwhile, elevated systems with panels mounted 3 to 5 meters above the ground allow tractors, seeders, and modern harvesting machines to move freely underneath, almost as if operating on a normal agricultural field. What truly sets agrivoltaics apart is its control technology. Many systems today integrate artificial intelligence, weather sensors, and automated controllers capable of adjusting the angle of the solar panels in real time. These systems constantly monitor soil moisture, temperature, sunlight intensity, and crop growth in order to optimize both agricultural yields and electricity production simultaneously. These fields are no longer just farms, they function more like data-driven food and energy factories. What makes agrivoltaics truly remarkable is a surprising fact that many people do not realize. Crops do not always grow better with more sunlight. Beyond a certain threshold, known as the light saturation point, plants can no longer absorb additional energy for photosynthesis. Instead, the excess heat begins to create thermal stress, increasing water evaporation and reducing growth efficiency. Under extreme heat conditions, crops can lose up to 95% of the water they absorb from the soil simply to cool themselves down. This is why many plants, including lettuce, spinach, tomatoes, and soft fruits, often grow better under partial shade rather than being exposed to direct sunlight all day long. These benefits are no longer just theoretical. One of the most well-known agrivoltaics experiments was conducted by the Fraunhofer Institute, one of Europe's leading solar research institutions. During the Rizola project, carried out between 2016 and 2018 near Lake Constance, researchers directly compared crops grown beneath solar panel systems with those cultivated on conventional farmland. The results were remarkably revealing. In 2016, when the climate was cooler and wetter, crop yields under the APV system were about 25% lower. But when Europe was hit by extreme heat waves and droughts in 2017 and 2018, the agrivoltaic fields actually outperformed the conventional plots thanks to lower temperatures and more stable moisture levels beneath the solar panels. This is an incredibly important signal. As global temperatures have already risen by more than 1.1 degrees since the pre-industrial era, and heat waves continue to become more frequent, the shade provided by solar panels may no longer be something that reduces productivity. It may gradually become a form of climate control system for the future of agriculture. If the Rizola project demonstrated the scientific potential of agrivoltaics, then the Netherlands proved that the technology could work in the real world on a commercial scale. In the village of Babberik near the German border, GroenLeven partnered with BayWa to build a 4-hectare raspberry farm integrated with solar power generation. Out of that area, 3 hectares were converted into a 2-megawatt agrivoltaic system, enough to supply electricity to hundreds of households. Raspberries are highly sensitive to hail, strong winds, and extreme heat, which is why they are normally protected by plastic coverings stretching hundreds of meters across the fields. But in this project, solar panels completely replaced the traditional protective roofing system. The panels were installed in an east-west orientation to maximize electricity production while also functioning as massive wind barriers that shield the crops. At first, the research team used conventional solar panels, but they blocked too much sunlight. They later switched to a different panel design with wider gaps between the photovoltaic cells, allowing more light to pass through to the crops below. And the results quickly attracted attention from both the agricultural and energy industries. The quality and yield of raspberries grown beneath the solar panels did not decline at all. In many cases, they even outperformed the conventional farming areas. For high-value soft fruits, such as raspberries, which typically sell for around 6 to 12 USD per kilogram in Europe and the United States, a single extreme weather event can cost farmers hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses. And that is exactly why this project drew attention across Europe. When powerful summer storms swept through the Babberik region, traditional plastic coverings were torn apart by strong winds and hail, causing some of the control fields to lose nearly their entire harvest. Meanwhile, the crops growing beneath the solar panel system suffered almost no significant damage, thanks to the protective barrier created by the panels above. Not only that, temperatures beneath the agrivoltaic system were several degrees Celsius lower, creating a more comfortable working environment while reducing irrigation demand by up to 50% during dry seasons. A major advantage as water prices and irrigation costs continue to rise sharply across Europe each year. Perhaps the most fascinating part is that the benefits do not flow in just one direction. As crops release moisture through evapotranspiration, they help cool the air surrounding the solar panels, while solar panels themselves operate more efficiently at lower temperatures. It becomes a system where agriculture and energy production begin supporting each other instead of competing for the same resources. Agrivoltaics does more than just protect crops. It also transforms farmland into a dual source of income for farmers. In addition to selling agricultural products, excess electricity generated by the solar system can be sold back to the power grid, creating a stable revenue stream even when extreme weather reduces crop yields. This is especially important in the United States, where more than 50% of family farms generate less than $100,000 in annual revenue and are facing growing pressure from rising fuel costs, fertilizer prices, and prolonged droughts. Even a relatively small agrivoltaic system with a capacity of a few megawatts can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in electricity revenue each year, depending on the region and local energy prices. But the greater value lies in its long-term impact. Agrivoltaics can reduce carbon emissions, decrease dependence on fossil fuels, and strengthen energy independence for rural communities. And while many modern agrivoltaic projects focus on high-tech crops, one of the fastest-growing models today revolves around something far simpler: sheep. Across the United States and Europe, a growing number of solar farms are now grazing sheep directly beneath rows of solar panels to control weeds instead of relying on lawn mowers or chemical herbicides. According to the American Solar Grazing Association, tens of thousands of hectares of solar farms across the United States have already adopted this approach, and the number continues to grow rapidly every year. The economic benefits are significant as well. A large-scale solar farm can spend tens of thousands of dollars annually just to maintain vegetation. Sheep, meanwhile, perform much of that work naturally at almost no additional cost, while also generating extra income through wool, milk, or meat production. What makes sheep especially suitable is their compatibility with the environment. They are small enough not to damage solar panels or electrical systems, while the shade provided by the panels helps reduce heat stress during the summer. In many places, rows of solar panels are no longer just producing electricity. They are becoming true energy pastures, where agriculture and clean energy finally begin to coexist on the same land. But as agrivoltaics begins to demonstrate clear economic benefits, an important question emerges. If this model is so promising, why hasn't it spread across the United States already? The first barrier is local opposition. Many communities do not want to see large-scale energy projects built near their homes, much like the resistance faced by wind farms and biogas plants in several states. With agrivoltaics, there is also concern that some investors could use agriculture as a justification for constructing massive solar farms. The second obstacle is regulation. When a piece of land is used simultaneously for farming and electricity generation, should it be classified as agricultural land or industrial energy infrastructure? Who qualifies for subsidies? Who owns the solar system? And who is responsible for maintenance? Questions like these have caused many projects to face years of delays before receiving approval. And finally, there is the issue of cost. Compared to traditional solar farms, agrivoltaic systems typically have electricity generation costs that are around 10 to 20% higher because they require taller support structures, more complex engineering, and designs optimized for both crops and power production. This creates the biggest challenge of all. Prioritize electricity too much, and crops may not receive enough sunlight. Prioritize agriculture too heavily, and energy output may decline. It is this delicate balance that has prevented agrivoltaics from exploding in popularity, even though its potential is enormous.